So you have heard me before talking about PCOS and how to reverse it naturally. Well, stay tuned because I'm going to be giving you few advice on what to incorporate and what to avoid to actually control your PCOS naturally. So stay tuned. Now, before we start our video, please let me know in the comments what natural ways have you tried already, which one worked for you and which one didn't. So a lot of those stuff that I'm going to be talking about are going to be diet changes. So let's start from them. First of all, first change that you should make is start eating whole foods. So if you are the kind of person who is going to the store and just grabbing some, frozen pies, frozen pizza, or anything that is already prepared for you, that is something that you should probably stop doing. So what I always say, how to start eating whole foods. Start eating things that do not have to be packed in plastic. So vegetables, fruit, meat, all of the stuff like that will be the things that you want to eat. So nothing that has already been cooked, prepared, pre-boiled, nothing like that. Now, in some countries it's easier than in the others, and of course you can do it in every country in the world, but some cultures are more prepared for it than the others. I'm, for example, in Spain, in Canary Islands, and I'm going to fresh food market in a minute, but I know that some cultures as a default eat more processed foods, like US, for example. So think about everything that hasn't been boiled or cooked yet, and if you're going to be doing it, do it yourself. So even if you are buying the meat, for example, that already has spices in it, opt to do it even yourself. And why is that? If you're going to check the ingredients, very often they have a lot of preservatives, they have a lot of sugar added to spices and so on. So buy your own spices, do your own meats, buy just raw pure meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, and go from there. Balance your carb and protein intake. Now, as we know, around 70% of women with PCOS have insulin resistance. So you are going to probably want to balance your insulin levels. Now, everybody is a little bit different. Some people have to go as extreme as me and go keto because that was the only thing that actually cured my acne. But for some people, going whole foods is already going to be enough. Now, if you are eating carbs, make sure that you're eating whole food carbs. So instead of eating a donut, eat maybe a sweet potato and balance it also with protein. So if you're eating simple starches, make sure that you eat protein with it. If you're eating apple, eat it with peanut butter, for example, and so on and so forth. So make sure that your insulin levels are leveled, and let me know in the comments if you want me to put a little bit more tips about how to combine foods to level out your insulin levels, or you can opt for lowering your insulin levels even lower by fasting, by keto, by low carb diets, and so on. But I'm a big proponent of going slowly because you don't want to quit everything if you don't have to, do you? Now, another thing will be aim for anti-inflammatory diet and anti-inflammatory ingredients. In previous point, I was talking about lowering your insulin levels, and for example, by eating bacon, your insulin level is going to be very, very low. However, it does have a lot of omega-6 fatty acids that need to be balanced with omega-3s to keep the inflammation away from your body. So you have to make sure that you are eating enough omega-3 fatty acids and they're in good ratio with omega-6. So for example, the products that have a lot of omega-3 fatty acids are, fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, all sorts of stuff like that. You can buy fish oil, but again, we would like to have everything the most natural because it's difficult to find the one that is pure and doesn't have any contamination. You can also eat precursors to omega-3 fatty acids in flaxseed, in walnuts, for example. A lot of leafy greens. I read today that Brussels sprouts are very rich in ALA fatty acids. They're precursor to omega-3s. So make sure that you are eating anti-inflammatory diet. Another tip that I found is to up your iron intake. I am not sure about that, but I guess that depends on your particular case. So for example, if you have very heavy periods, you're definitely going to want to up your iron intake. And of course, if you're a meat eater, probably you're not going to have to. But if you have been, for example, prescribed metformin, I know that it can influence your levels as well. So you might have to up your iron intake. Be careful though, do it under supervision, because having too high iron levels are also not good for you. Make sure that you also up your magnesium levels, especially if you are doing any low carb or keto diet. You're going to need a lot of magnesium and potassium. Magnesium is also very good for anxiety. It's good for your nerves, for your muscle connectivity. When you get cramps, you very often lack in magnesium. So there are a lot of things that you can eat naturally, like almonds and cashews and spinach. And also a little bit of dark chocolate won't hurt. Another tip is add some fiber to aid your digestion, and of course all the vegetables and all the fruit are going to have a lot of fiber, so opt for high fibrous vegetables and make sure that you're eating enough of them and see how your digestion is. Now another thing is cutting out coffee. Coffee is said to be inflammatory, and it also can it makes your body produce epinephrine, adrenaline, similar thing. So it might stress you out even more. It might raise your cortisol levels. That might in turn make your insulin resistance worse. So this is something to consider. If you want to add supplements, for example, this is going to be a second part. So those are some things that you can start supplementing to help your insulin resistance and your PCOS naturally. So first thing is of course going to be inositol. This is the holy grail of PCOS. So 40:1 ratio of myo-inositol to D-chiro-inositol is going to be perfect for you. And there are also a few products that I can link down below. Now another thing that you might want to up the consumption of is cinnamon, because it's said to actually level out your insulin levels a little bit. Then another thing could be turmeric, that is very anti-inflammatory as well, so it can help especially if you have high levels of inflammation with your PCOS. Another thing that very often women with PCOS are depleted with is zinc, which can not only help your skin but overall fertility. Another thing to consider would be supplementing with vitamin D, which is very often depleted in women with PCOS, and to be honest, in everybody in the world that lacks some, at least in some parts of the world. But apparently we have more common low levels of vitamin D. So make sure that you supplement with it in a very good quality. And that also will take me to the next one, which is cod liver oil. Cod liver oil or krill oil or anything like that, that is gonna have omega-3 fatty acids. So again, as I said, you can supplement it in forms of food, or if you want to choose a supplement, you can do that. Again, I heard a lot of good things about krill oil, because apparently krill is still quite safe and doesn't have a lot of like heavy metals and stuff in it, because it's like a specific creature that lives in the sea. So you might want to consider that. Another thing is berberine, and it is said actually in very many scientific studies that it works as well as metformin to level your insulin levels and to help insulin resistance. So this is something that you might want to consider, especially if you have high levels of insulin resistance. This is my playlist about insulin resistance. And especially if you have been prescribed metformin. Now another thing is adaptogenic herbs. And what are adaptogenic herbs? Adaptogenic herbs help communication between your hormones in your body. So it kind of helps your body read its own signals, because very often this is also the problem with people who have quite a few hormonal disorders, that their communication between the hormones, and hormones are just little chemicals that signal to your brain, okay, produce more of that hormone, produce less of that hormone, are disrupted somewhere. So definitely adaptogenic herbs can help, and some help with some issues more than the others. So the first, for example, is going to be maca root. So if you have problems with estrogen levels, you might want to think about maca. If you have low libido, for example, as well. So maca can help, can help you produce estrogen, help you with ovulation, with low libido, as I said, and even with your cortisol levels, so stress hormone levels. So this is definitely something to consider. There are a few macas, so if you want me to make a video about them, let me know in the comments. Then we have ashwagandha, that is also very helpful for stress and for our adrenals. So that is something I like a lot, and I would definitely recommend. And I'm not going to go too much into depth about those few that I'm going to mention. So there is also holy basil, licorice root that you might want to try. And there is many adaptogens. You might want to try a few of them and see how you feel. Make sure that you always incorporate just one new thing and keep it for a couple of months to see whether this thing made a difference or not. Otherwise, if you're going to incorporate too many, you don't know which worked or which didn't. But the other thing is chasteberry, Vitex. You've definitely heard about it before, but Vitex influences your progesterone levels. So you have to be very careful so it doesn't do more harm than good. Because if your progesterone levels are actually okay, Chesterberry, Vitex can actually do more harm than good. This was actually my experience. Another thing is probiotics, and I'm a big proponent of natural probiotics and of doing all of these things yourself. I'm Polish, so I'm a big proponent of sauerkraut that is unpasteurized, which gives you both probiotics and prebiotics, so also fibers that bacteria can eat and can live off. You know, you can try stuff like unpasteurized kombucha, kefir as well. Kefir is really, really good. Water kefir, milk kefir, whatever you prefer. And I would definitely recommend doing natural probiotics and hopefully doing it in your own area, because believe it or not, we all have different bacterial profile. So buying something that is imported might not have specific profile bacteria to your surroundings. So that's another science in itself. But if you're willing to, try doing your own probiotics. And if not, opt for fermented foods that are not pasteurized, like a kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, water kefir, and kombucha. Now, last two things is going to be stress reduction. So not only sleep hygiene, that is already going to help you reduce some stress, because, well, most of us don't stress when we sleep, but also stuff like mindfulness, being present in the moment, trying not to worry too much. Easier said than done, again, I know. But working on your mental state is super, super important, because believe it or not, our mental state influences every single cell in our body, because there are specific hormones being released that can influence our microbiome, our digestion, that in turn can can influence how what our cells are built on and how they function in the future. So stress is a very degenerative thing. And the last thing is to try to avoid endocrine disruptors. So if you are working, for example, in some toxic environment with a lot of chemicals, I don't know, car wash or anything like that, or I don't know, area with pesticides or a lot of chemicals, this can also disrupt your endocrine system. So all of your hormones, thyroid hormones, estrogen especially. Try not to, heat up plastics and all sorts of stuff like that. But again, let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video about that. And that is it. There was quite a few advice on how to control your PCOS naturally. If you want me to make a video in depth about any of those, please let me know in the comments, and make sure you like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to be notified about my future videos. And I'll see you very soon. Bye.